Previously, we explored this abandoned Gothic mansion and heard the shocking story of its end from a descendant of the estate staff.
That's all I can tell you about this. One time in 1922, my granddad bought this place. And my mom, and her daddy, which was my grandfather.
Today, we are taking you deep inside to explore its never-recorded dark maze-like cellars, overgrown outbuildings, and its violent last days. We return to the small hole under an old stair, the only visible way into this underground. I'm happy to share this with you today, as I've only seen a few short videos of this location in existence and none of the basements. This may be the first online video of them. It's very dark below, and immediately in view is a carved fireplace and hallway. Various collapsing entrances spill bricks into their doorways. Chambers with windows into other halls offer a confusing option of where to go next. At the branch, light spills from a rusted grate above. Into the open, a courtyard leads again into passages that continue into darkness, and grateless holes in the floor drop to old plumbing shafts. Another dark window to a room leads to a passage beyond. The floor becomes deep with mud, and fearing more holes, we turn around. Looking up at the finely carved pillars, it is brought to mind again, how could a house like this meet the violent end the caretaker had told us the story of? I've been shocked to find that many people in conversations I had saw the houses I visited as things to be ignored, forgotten, or they just weren't sure why I'd visited them in the first place. Some even told me the people in them were only bad people that deserved anything bad that happened to them. I soon found that in fact these types of houses represented for most, in Ireland at the time, the very stronghold of the landlord class. These owning families were normally Protestants and ruled over their Catholic servants. They, by extension, belonged to the Imperial British rule. In 1919 to 1921, the IRA was one faction that fought the Irish War of Independence against the British, which ended with a treaty that created the Irish Free State. The IRA was later split on this decision, and some continued to fight afterwards against the Free State from 1922 to 1923. As part of their guerrilla campaign, they targeted the big houses of the landed gentry, who controlled some 30% of Ireland's lands at the time. Some 200 great houses were put to the torch until the end of the fighting in May of 1923. In the end, I found this very house had been built and owned by an absentee landlord who lived in England. His representative was widely hated, as when his Protestant tenants could not pay rent, he would cover it for them. But if Catholic tenants missed rent, they would be evicted, even in the worst of the famine years. His nephew had inherited it and lived in another county. Shortly before the burning of the house, there were just 3 female and 1 male servant watching the place for him, and they had included the relatives of the very man we spoke to earlier. As the tit-for-tat house burnings continued between the IRA and the British Army, one fateful winter night, mere months before the end of the fighting, some staff were woken up and held at gunpoint by the IRA at a small house on the estate. The leader had thought the smaller house was the mansion and ordered it burned. They soon realized the mistake and found the mansion and set it ablaze. In hours, one of the most unique and heavily ornamented mansions in Ireland was in ruins. A large tunnel connects the courtyards with passages leading in a circle around. In these are a number of small rooms, where I captured an intact bottle in the wine cellar, still sitting there after 100 years. As we continue to loop through the passages to the main tunnel and second courtyard, the place becomes a mirror of itself. We find again the same fireplace where we started. The main tunnel entrance is choked with refuse and rubble. Weird side alcoves lead nowhere. The second courtyard's vined walls tower far above us. A second entrance leads to more flooded-out passages. Up an embankment, the outer courtyard awaits. I've heard vague information about a chapel and mausoleum in the area. A single tree grows from what may have been a small gatehouse. A hole in the ground hints at the passages reaching much further than was immediately apparent. In this case, a good sign to watch for weak spots underfoot. Old walls mark the outer boundaries, and mixed in the vines you can just make out hidden structures. Inside a fallen stone building is a rack with rusted tools, easily 100 years old themselves. A hole in the bushes is the only sign of an old path. A square, fallen stone appears to be an old grave. To the right, what has to be the family mausoleum. rain begins to fall, as does the darkness. The building has no entrance other than some small windows. A peek inside shows that if there were caskets, they are now long gone. With the sun fading, we head back into the courtyard to examine the remaining structures. This small building may have been a chapel, as its wrought iron stands seem too small to be related to horses or tools. Having satisfied the exploration of most of the site, we head back towards the muddy path we first took. In the end, this place may not be truly haunted by a servant ghost in a burning window, but by a very tangible and tragic past caused by bitter conflicts that still haunt the land today. The people who once stood watching their home and workplace burn on a cold winter's night, and those that burned it as a symbol of tyranny and repression, are all now gone. The ruin now sits alone in a sea of thorn bushes, mossy trees, and its own fallen grandeur that we've shared with you today. I hope you've enjoyed the trip into its lost history, and I'm glad to have had the chance to show this place for the first time to all of you. Please join me and subscribe as I continue across Ireland, bringing you more unique abandoned places. I'm bringing you to a world of lost places, lost mansions, mental asylums, unique abandoned locations, industrial sites, and more. Subscribe and explore with me today